So, Chris, in terms of your sort of journey with us and where you've been with UK Homes Network, you joined us within the first week,
Mm.
uh, and I reached out to you via LinkedIn because one of the most important parts of social media and probably one of the biggest criticisms is what it does to our mental health and the effect that it has. And I know it gets a lot of bad press in the media. But one of the things that's particularly helped me through my journey with mental health issues, being diagnosed with a mental health issue, is being actually surrounded by content that is able to support you and give you practical steps in terms of improving it. And that's something that's massively benefited me in terms of my journey. So when we launched UK Homes Network, we set out that we wanted to create a specific group called Health and Wellbeing, where you and Alison are actually sharing practical tips on stress management, mental resilience, anxiety, leadership, all these sorts of things that people don't necessarily think about when running a business.
Mm.
And I just wanted to sort of not only thank you live on the call with an audience
Mm.
for being so actively engaged, but obviously with the posts you're putting in on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, I think it'd be really, really important for our audience to understand your background and your career, where you've come from, and how you are now in the position where you're helping so many high-level business owners and leaders across the country.
Yeah, yeah, no worries, mate. Good man. Yeah, so I mean, our we cross paths because I mean I've just gone through a process of rejigging the way that I'm positioning my service. But you and I crossed paths because there was a common ground in terms of challenging and dealing with an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and that I think that was a sort of the common ground that we had. Both got that backstory. So I think that, and if I just explain where that came from. So my career, half my life, I'm 50 in February, 25 years spent in the recruitment sector. The sector that I operated in primarily was customers were spending like tens of millions of pounds, even more, on their temporary labour. So big budgets, lots of spend, and they expected a big piece of me as a director of the business. Lots of pressure, lots of stress. Then, habits outside of work weren't particularly helping with that. They were actually, now I realise, and now I've done the work. I realised that what I was doing was only making things worse. So I actually officially exited the industry in August or July 23 to look to then have your results coach on a full-time basis. It's always been a little bit of a side gig. I've got another side gig I'll mention to you in a second. Because I trained about 8 years ago now. So then went through another training process with a coach I've used for now 8 years, a guy called Andy Ramage, just a real, just a good quality coach, a good quality guy, and he's trained me to the level I'm at now. And yeah, that was then I launched the business on a whole time basis. Absolutely clattered LinkedIn primarily, and obviously supported the UK Homes platform to create opportunity, and that sort of brings me to where I am today. So my target client is a senior leader, CEO, business owner, someone that's got financial responsibility. They've probably got people responsibility, and they're likely, because I generally work with someone between the ages of 42 to 62, they've probably got some considerable family commitments as well. So that's where I am now. Another side gig I've got, I know we spoke about it before the call, but I'm an on-call firefighter in the village where I live. So I've been doing that now for the best part of 8 years. Yes, there's potential risk, but as an individual, you are actually the priority when it comes to the actual work in the fire service. But learnt loads, lots of different skills, and I'll talk about this around leadership actually, because it's quite an important thing. A lot of the skills that I've learned in the fire service have been completely and utterly new. So I've really had to adapt and develop and really grow in terms of my abilities and skills, not only practical skills, but upstairs skills as well. So actually I've been able to really test myself with some of the things that so I do a lot of work on myself around mindset, which I think I have to, because if I continue to work on my own mindset, then of course that can only be beneficial to the clients that I work with. So that's a bit of a check. I still interact in the recruitment sector. Not all my clients are in recruit. I've got a real mixed match: property, insurance, telecoms, office furniture, recruitment, obviously, so finance, legal, all sorts. So it doesn't really My work doesn't necessarily need to have someone in a specific sector. I just work with a specific person with specific challenges, really, which is typically lots of stress, lots of pressure, lots of responsibility, and they need a good quality sounding board to coach them through those situations. So, how does that sound?
Yeah, perfect. Well, it's so interesting because I think that what you do is a vocation in terms of there's a real mission behind the sort of help that you're giving people, and that normally comes from a place within, whether it's you've had bad experiences at work, you've had bad experiences in your personal life, um, in terms of I find that a lot of self-employed people or people that decide to go into business are people that have either had really good experiences with leadership or really bad experiences with leadership and have decided that they either want to emulate it or they want to do it for themselves. Is that a similar sort of background to yourself?
Interesting, mate. So the leadership thing is it's come. I've not concentrated on it initially. When I launched Your Results Coach on a full-time basis, leadership was sitting in the background. I'd neglected it, to be honest with you. But I had hundreds of people dotted across the UK in my last role. So people leadership has been a massive part of my role in recruitment for 2 decades. So it's only just really now through doing some work in terms of reinventing how I help people is that's come to the fore. But what I would say is my approach is very much about I will help someone that's in a bit of a pickle. Okay, so if they are super stressed, really struggling, drinking a bit too much, rubbish habits at home, relationship in tatters, I can help somebody that's in that sort of slightly dark and not so great place. But equally, the people that I work with, once I've got them from that point and we've got them to a place where they're firing on all four cylinders or three cylinders at least, that's when we move into a process of actually really starting to really move the needle and strive towards peak performance. Now, I think everyone has worked for great people and worked for not so great people. I would expect most people would say that. But what I would say in my career is that I was definitely part of a high performing team. I was definitely part. I speak to the MD that I worked for at this particular point in time. So I'm going back sort of about 8 to then 18 years for about a decade, and I still speak to him. And he says that there was nobody else that we needed or wanted in that team, that group of people. There was sort of 4 on my level and then him, so the 5 of us. Was an unbelievable team, and actually I feel I can say, I'm proud to say that I believe I've worked inside a peak performing team, so I know what that feels like and I know what that looks like, and I've got a good idea of what you need to have upstairs and in skill set to be able to do that. So I think where I'm coming from now, and the mantra for Your Results Coach is I want to see people achieving their potential. I want to see people excelling, not just doing okay, but doing great, and really performing in business, but at home. And I would say that the majority of my work, generally, the low hanging fruit and the bits that I target initially are on the individual and circumstances outside of work, because you can go and chase the next deal, build your pipeline, bring in new team members, develop your systems, work on your leadership qualities in business. But actually, if outside of work things aren't ship shape, family life is a bit rocky, relationships not where it needs to be. As I say, poor habits, late nights, early mornings, bad, poor quality sleep, nutrition not where it needs to be, social connection, which is something I'm working on with a client at the moment, isn't quite where it needs to be. I want to start on that first, because once we've got the individual in a fit state, then we know that we can really have a considerable impact in business. So that's just my natural, it's like my default setting really, is I go individual first and then start to look at business after. So
Well, I want to delve more into that, into the stress element, because we in the property industry, and I've joked to you before that there's a lot of crossovers between recruitment and my old career in a estate agency.
yeah, there is,
It
yeah.
two seem to, if they'd got bored of recruitment, they would go into estate. They got bored of a state agency, they'd go into recruitment, because there's a lot of, in terms of the way that the systems and processes are set up, they're quite similar, and they are both people businesses in terms of the way that they operate. It's just different. You're dealing with property rather than jobs or careers. But yeah, in terms of what we're going through in the property industry at the moment, there's a lot of people that are worried and rightly concerned about a new piece of legislation that's coming in for people that own properties. There's also, we've got the budget coming up on the 26th of November, which across every industry is terrifying a lot of people. And we're also getting into a period now where cash flow seems to just drop off a cliff until we pick back up again in January, February time, when property transactions start to happen again. So for a lot of people, I mean, they might not necessarily be like me, where they wear their heart on their sleeve and they're quite extroverted with their emotions. What are some of the telltale signs that you might be sort of heading down a dark road with stress? What's one of the things that indicate to you that someone needs
So
some work?
that's really, it's a great question, mate. It's a nice one. That's going to get me really thinking. So no two people are identically the same. I need to say that. And whilst I might talk about some ideas and concepts and things that you can implement into your life, it doesn't mean that what I say is absolutely going to be bang on for you. Every person I work with, I treat as an individual, and we'll do work on them. So, and everybody's different. That's the reality of the world. If you're looking for telltale signs, so like you say, you're quite vocal, you're quite open, and sort of you're quite happy to share your vulnerability. A lot of people are not. And I think that that's something to look out for in the first instance is, can you start to see the person that looks a little bit disheveled? You can see that they're maybe not quite as vocal and as enthusiastic as they normally are. You know, can you tell that actually there's some alcohol's it's a nightmare, because it's a go-to for a lot of people just to numb pain and to de-stress, but the reality is it actually does the opposite to your body, and it just compounds the stress, and your body raises cortisol levels. So looking at things like that, where maybe someone is not sleeping quite as well as they should do, ratty, agitated, a little bit shorter tempered, maybe a little bit distant sometimes as well, drinking a bit too much, and whatever else comes with outside of work, agitated at home, maybe a little bit agitated with staff and team members and clients and whatever it's going to be. So those are some of the telltale signs that someone may feel a little bit unsettled. But everyone's different, of course. So there's going to be no two people the same. What you said there is quite interesting. I do want to pick up on it, because this is really important in terms of having an ability to really train and manage your mind. Is that a lot of the things that you've just spoken about are yet to happen. So we are yet to have the budget, and yes, there's doom and gloom surrounding it, and we know that it can have a real impact on a lot of industries, and property can get a raw deal sometimes. We're talking about transactions that actually we're 8 weeks away from yet, and may or may not happen, so one of the most important things when it comes to stress and anxiety is, a lot of the time, anxiety particularly, you're living in the future. You're considering what might happen when it's just not even here at this point in time. At the moment, right now, there's nothing whatsoever that anyone, apart from some of the politicians, can actually do to influence what's going to come out in that statement. And chances are, it's probably ready to go now. Chances are, with the odd little tweak and change, but the majority of it's probably ready to go. All you can do, we've always spoke about, I've always found recruitment to be quite an agile industry. I've always had to be agile and as a director to change things and go about things in a different way and react to clients' needs, react to what the industry's doing. And it's the same in property. There's an agile, adaptable group of people in that sector that, once we know what's happening in this autumn statement, they'll react. They'll deal with what is then presented, and at that point you can then navigate what the plan is, because that's the thing, isn't it? At the moment you can't make a plan because we don't know what it says. So that's really important, is that you start to think about if you continually live in the future, that will be a considerable driver of anxiety and stress, because you'll always be thinking about those what ifs, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, definitely. And before we move on to really the whole crux of the webinar, which is the headspace of a high performer and leadership, I want to sort of just delve into you a little bit more, Chris, if that's all right. So,
for it, mate, yeah.
the director within a recruitment business, you're obviously working with the fire brigade, which are all hugely stressful environments. In terms of your style of leadership, would you say that was formulated from what you've learned now as a results coach, or would you say that there's been a lot of lessons that have led you to showing people a better way in terms of how they lead businesses or lead
Mm.
large organizations?
Yeah, so my style, approach, and how I like to work and support customers has developed over the last decade.
Yeah,
So I trained officially. So my whole self-development journey started in October the 30th, 2017. So I'm 8 years into that now. And I would say for that, so including that, the decade is where I've really fine-tuned and developed my own leadership style. I've naturally gone down more of a coaching route. If I need to point and tell and direct, I'll do it. And generally, the way I'm built is I'll do that in pressure situations where actually we've not got time to think too much now. So I'm going to be just telling you what I need you to do. Can you just crack on with it, please? But under normal circumstances, my natural style has become more of a coaching, empowering, giving people accountability, allowing them to grow. Because the more that they can learn and grow and take on, then of course, selfishly, that starts to take a little bit of that pressure off me, and I can start to have my head above water, be a little bit more strategic, and think about the sort of the bigger picture. So, but what I would say is that the work that I'm doing with leaders that I work with now through your results coach has really accelerated that a lot more, because I've been working with leaders over the last couple of years where what I've found, the sort of the route that I'm getting to is that I'm helping people to build a more emotionally regulated makeup. I'm helping people to become less reactive and start to engage with the sort of the human, more logical side of their brain, rather than allowing the chimp or the sort of the emotional part of their brain to take over and start basically actioning things for them. So, because what I see with a lot of people when it comes to stress, as I say, we're a lot of the time with stress, we it could be a pre-programmed response to a stressful situation. But what's happening is the emotional side of our brain, the bit that we've had since that human beings were put on this planet, which is to protect you and to keep you safe. That's actually that part of the brain that's doing the work. But what I found with individuals now is I'm helping people to basically reprogram at times parts of their brain and thought processes, so that actually they can just become a more resilient, more thoughtful, more calm, more disciplined leader of people. And actually, I mean, I remember when I've worked for a, I worked for a woman years. I mean, I'm going back, oh my God, 20 odd years, and she was it was a bit frantic. She panicked a lot, and when something went on, she was just flapping, and it made me feel really uncomfortable. I was like, "Bloody hell, you're stressing me out here, and I don't even know what's going on." So, I think what I'm trying to help people to do is to, yeah, not react, not to react in an emotional way, to engage with the more thoughtful, logical side of their brain, and conduct themselves in a professional, balanced, disciplined sort of way. And I'm not saying that we don't high five when we get a deal, and I'm not saying that we can't be a little bit, I won't swear fully, but peed off, at times. That's all okay. But I think there's a real opportunity that I see working with people, that is everything I've just said around creating that balanced individual, but also making sure that people, when you've got a resilient headspace is born from having a more optimistic, solution focused. There is a solution to everything, thought process and mindset, and that then flows back into being able to develop someone that's actually calm under pressure, thoughtful. We're not stressing the team out. If the team start to panic, we've got an ability to be able to help them through that, and they can be comfortable that the leader is actually in control. They know what's going on. We're going to sort this. We're going to find a solution, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. So the statement comes out. The good quality leaders in your property sector, for example, get the statement, digest the information, get some legal input. What does it actually mean to our business? What does it actually mean to the sector? Now, what have we got to do in terms of our business strategy to actually make sure that it doesn't cause us any particular pain, and off we go in a different direction? So that's hopefully that's answered your question a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And you referenced one of my favorite books, which is The Chimp Paradox. And I was one of those people. Like the woman you described was literally me during my working career. I had no emotional regulation and
Yes.
found myself either being quite confrontational, quite emotional about situations that
Mm.
warranted a bit more professionalism than you know laying all your cards out on the table, basically.
Yes.
And that chimp paradox actually allowed me to rationalize and compartmentalize each sort of reaction in my brain before I was able to speak out and actually have those sort of knee-jerk reactions. So that's really, really powerful.
Mm.
We've spoken a bit about leadership, but I'm going to stop doing the long-winded Robert Peston questions, but I'm going to drive straight into a hard-hitting question here, Chris, which
Okay.
is, in terms of for you, what we've got a mixture of self-employed and people that work for some quite big organizations on the
Yep.
call. What's the difference between a manager and a leader, in your opinion?
Great question. Okay, so a manager is somebody that will be overseeing process, tactical processes, standard operating procedures, conformity, governance, compliance, dotting I's, crossing T's, and making sure that the operation of a business and a team is is delivered in a way that the business expects. That's how I would describe management. And management at times can be a real, I think it can be a real quite challenging job, particularly if you've got a big team, you've got a lot of people, and a lot of your time could quite easily be taken up with a lot of people stuff, good and bad. Um, so that's where I see a manager. So someone that is responsible for basically keeping the wheels turning. Leadership's different. Still need to have that capability because a leader will need to manage situations and potential issues. But from a leadership perspective, what we're looking for here is more. It is more forward thinking. It's more forward thinking. It's more strategic. We're trying to then look at little things like, continue with the example we've got, the autumn statement. The leaders that are listening to this or watch it on playback or just in your sector or in your in the UK Homes network, the leaders are the ones that they've got the legal advisors on standby. They've got the HR people on standby. They've got the industry experts on standby. They've already engaged in conversation. They've got the peer groups. They've probably done some networking. They're probably part of some sort of forum that's also waiting for the outcomes of this statement, knowing that within the space of a working week, here's the statement, here's what it says, gathering information and working out what the game plan is for the business going forward, it's the leaders that will come into the fore at this particular point in time because they're the ones now that have got to absorb what's happening, understand economic conditions and make sure that they set a direction of travel for the business that's fit for purpose. So that's probably quite a nice example to consider regarding the autumn statement that we've already mentioned. There's more to go at here in terms of my opinion on the makeup of a good quality leader. But we'll rather than me keep yapping on, I'll let you ask your questions and maybe we'll get to that in a bit because I do have I base my thoughts on a book that I read actually. So and it was based on research. I quite like that really. So and just to go back to the chimp paradox. So I actually went to see Professor Steve Peters last week. He was in Wilmslow doing a talk, a charity event going and did a talk. Just really interesting. That concept for me, there's lots of different models, okay? So there's lots of mindset models, and people might be listening to this thinking, this is intriguing, would like to talk more to Chris about it. Chris. Great. For other people, they may be locked into a different concept, but all the concepts really are doing a similar sort of thing. The reason I like the chimp paradox, really simply, is exactly that. It's simple, it's dead logical, it's dead simple. Professor Steve Peters, because of his clinical background, can bamboozle you with science, but he chooses not to. He just keeps it dead simple, so anyone can understand it and get to grips with it. And that's my chosen model that I integrate into my own service, and that's then the language. So, like you've just been speaking to me, then, if we were chatting and you got a bit of an emotional problem, something was going on, you talk to me as if I've let my chimp's, my chimp's got a little bit carried away here, sort of thing, and that's where I get to with my clients. That's the language that we use. But very, very. I just love the model. I think it's brilliant. So, but that's going backwards. I'll come back to leadership. So hopefully, I've answered your question on management versus leadership.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like from what I'm interpreting from so much information you're trying to pack in such a short time, is that managers basically run the day to day, and leaders are able to run the future with delegation and vision and
And
being
and
able to
and
express.
ideally, without stressing about it as well. If we can get a leader to be thinking of the future, but being composed and thoughtful about those thoughts, and not getting carried away with all the what ifs, the maybes, and let the chimp do their thing, then we're starting to carve up a leader that a lot of people would want to be following.
Okay, so if I'm sat on this call now,
Yeah.
I know that in my current job, I am currently just managing day to day. I'm doing a good job. I'm dotting the I's, I'm crossing the T's, everything's organized, but I'm not really doing what it takes to be a leader. What would you suggest in that start to transition my mindset from a good manager to a great leader?
So the need, I'd need, I'd need a bit more information than what you've given me, but I'll go with what you've given me so far. So, number one, don't be too hard on yourself. That's the first thing, because we all want to grow. Growth mindset's something I've not mentioned, and I should do. So that's a different concept from developed from a lady called Carol Dweck. Initially with students, but now it's just a widely known concept for people, and that's really about accepting that you have the ability to grow, develop, change, get better, evolve, whatever word you want to put in there. Whereas a fixed mindset is, well, it is what it is, done what I've done, can't change anymore, sort of thing. I am what I am, so to speak. There's a lot more to it than that, but just for the purpose of this conversation, growth mindset's really important. So first things first, embrace the fact that you have identified that, I think I'm doing a fantastic job of management. Now I want to step my game up and really start to fine tune those leadership skills. Is that, don't be hard on yourself that you don't think you're there, because I'll say imposter syndrome, and I'll see if we get to it at some point. I'm not sure. But the point is here is that you don't be too hard on yourself. Accept that you can grow and develop. If you're steering your own business, it may be a really good opportunity to engage with someone like what I do, to actually work with an individual outside of your business that can actually help and fine tune some of those skills and leadership development, yeah, whatever you've got to develop in. But I think what's also important is, when you're looking to develop as a leader, whilst there is a makeup of a leader, it depends what you're leading. If you're leading 1,000 people all across the globe, that's a completely different style of leadership role than if you've got a team of 5 in one office, in Willenhall or whatever it is. So you've got to understand and bear in mind what the business is that you're leading, the people that you're leading, the industry it's based in, and then from there start to then create the building blocks to then develop yourself into the leader that you would like to be. And when it comes to the mindset of that individual, I'm going to say, so just for now, until I answer some, I'll speak a little bit more. You got to, the starting point is having a growth mindset and accepting that you're ready to change and develop and grow.
I love that. Yeah, that's perfect, Chris. And I think that in terms of where you take people on that journey, is that if you are willing to have those questions with yourself already, then you're half the way there. And I like to think I'm quite a self-aware person,
Mm.
um, but I've only got one perspective. It doesn't matter how sort of paradoxical I like to be, that there's only my perspective on and view on things, and I can change that view. But by the conversations that me and you have, and having that sort of extra person to look in on certain situations, you're able to get an additional perspective that you might not have had before, and that's what transitions you to a leader, is being able to predict what those other perspectives are going to be, and how you can sort of shape that vision around it.
Yeah, and do you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong whatsoever in a leader showing vulnerability with their people. This is a problem, particularly with male leaders. I can't show my team that I'm feeling a little bit stressed and overwhelmed at the moment because I'm the leader, but actually sometimes I think there's some real power in the team seeing the real person, and for the leader to actually look, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. So some of my clients have done that, and actually some of my clients, their team know they work with me, and in fact they know me because I actually work with some of them now as well. So I think that the key thing here, the people that are going to develop the most, the quickest, the best, the most effective, and develop in the most effective way, in my opinion, maybe I would say this, but I do it myself, are those that choose to engage in some external support. I think what's really important is, and I've had a few clients, as one of my testimonials, my website says this from a guy called Andy Boyd, is that we would enter into a session, and I have to find the way that I'm going to work with somebody, because some of my clients will not respond whatsoever from me really getting stuck into the ribs. I've got a couple, they want challenge. They actually, when I challenged, one of my clients hugged me at the end of the session, and I give him a real hard time. Best session ever that was. Right, buddy, I was worried I've probably been a little bit too hard on you then. So what you've got to find is you've got to find the right approach and the right sounding board to be able to then get the best results from that process. So because what's really important is, whilst somebody could question themselves, well, I think I'm a good manager, but I'm not sure about whether I'm a good leader or not. When somebody starts to hold up the mirror and ask a few questions and get you to reflect and just start to create some insights and thought processes, you might actually find, you know what, there are some good leadership bits in here. I'm maybe just not recognizing them at this point in time. And that's, I've got loads of stuff going through my head now. So that's something I had with a client, is that she was going into a massive meeting, a £500 million price tag on this meeting. So a massive, massive meeting. So that's the scale of the contract and the work that this project would create. And really nervous about going into this meeting. This is a corporate leader inside a business, and really nervous about going to the meeting. And we did a little bit of work on WhatsApp. I actually did a spot coaching session before the session, and one of the things I asked her to lean into was the fact that she'd been doing this job for 20 years. She knows it inside out. They can't really ask her a question that she can't answer. And if they do, there's nothing wrong with saying, I can't give you the answer now, I'm going to come back to you. So my point being is that it's not unusual for someone actually that is on paper a seasoned leader to still question their abilities. Do you see what I mean? So there's a real soul. So it's not about training. So you can be developed in certain skill sets to be a leader. I do a lot of workshops around all that sort of stuff. But what's the most important thing is that you're working on you as an individual, and how, because I think the most natural thing a leader can have is their own leadership style, and not Chris Tremlett trying to be Chris Howe, or David Tremlett trying to be Chris Tremlett. We've got to develop your own style so that it's natural, and because if it's a natural style, then people are going to buy into it more, aren't they?
Oh, definitely, totally agree. I'm just going to come back to the audience, guys. If you've got any questions for Chris, please do put them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got some experiences, if you want to put some hypothetical experiences, so that it's not necessarily relating to yourself or an individual within your business, we'd love to hear some of the experiences that you've had. But also, Chris would love to hear your questions on leadership and mindset. So if you could put those in the chat, please do, and we will get round to them towards the end of the session. So yeah, we want to make this as interactive as possible.
And just on that, Chris, if you can, brilliant idea, because I'll answer it. I don't mind answering any questions now. But if it's one of those, if there's delicate questions that someone might want to ask, I'll have to get my details shared so that people can actually just make direct contact if they want to as well.
Definitely. They can reach out to you into the platform. I've just shared a link as well to one of your one-to-one discovery calls. If anyone wants to book into that, it's just a Calendly link and it will go straight into Chris's Zoom. So you can actually have a one-to-one session with Chris and find out a little bit more about it. But I'm going to take it back in terms of that leadership style, because that's really, really interesting in terms of authenticity is a word that gets bandied around a lot at the minute, and I think it's because we live in a world where there's so much content pumped out on
Mm,
social media.
mm,
There's so much around sort of AI, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I think people are increasingly looking for authentic relationships
mm,
and authentic information and advice that's coming from them, whether that's, they're looking on platforms or they're looking, from the people that are giving them that information, whether it's leaders or managers within a business. They want to know that authentic side of them to build a relationship with them, and then there comes trust.
mm.
In terms of making that authentic style of leadership that feels true to yourself, is there some things that you can do to find out what that actually means to you, and what is there values that you can hold on to personally that help convey through your leadership style?
Mm. That's a good question. So I'll think about some. I'll try and reference some of the work I've done with a client. So, client, business owner, telecoms, wanted to find purpose, why, has suffered from depression in the past, and couldn't quite explain where those depressive thoughts had come from, because actually business is flying, doing great, lovely family, happy life, blah blah blah, stop drinking. Um, so we did an exercise. It's a slightly morbid, that's the way that I go about it, but it's really powerful. The exercise that I do is I take somebody to their deathbed and I ask them to tell me what they are telling the people that are there as they're going to die, basically. So it sounds really morbid, but it's that powerful. And the idea is then we then use that to then lift all the way back to, well, what is it you actually, if you're telling your loved ones this is what they need to do, what do you stand for? There's a bit more to it than that, but I don't want to labour that particular point too much. But that exercise is really powerful. And what we get to is that we start to then create and script what that person stands for, and therefore what those values are. Now, with the particular client, he wanted to then lift those values and put them in place into his business, because he's hiring some additional people while the company grows, and he wanted them to stand by so he wanted to recruit them in against those values, and also then operate and work and stand to those values as well, which so far so good. He's recruited a good little team, everyone's still there and happy and performing, so business is moving forward, so happy days. So that's really important, because what you'll find, once you know and you understand clearly what you stand for and what your values truly are, that then enables you to make decisions and take action and make choices that are aligned to those values. And you'll know when you are asked to do something, or you commit to doing something that actually doesn't quite align to those values, you'll feel it. The gut will be doing somersault, and you'll feel it. But what I have to then do is help people to understand the reason you've got that feeling. It's going against the grain in terms of your values. Understand and explore why, and then we have to deal with that problem. And then we're into another topic, which is about setting boundaries, and that's a massive thing for stress. So there's another thing. There's so much stuff we could talk about, so I'll try to be selective. But that's what I'd say to that question.
Well, that hit a chord with me massively. I think it's always important to sort of be a bit show some sort of personal experience with this, and obviously not just sort of fire questions at you, Chris, because I mean the last few months have been the highest of highs and the lowest of lows,
Yeah.
particularly me running my business. And
Mm-hmm.
you were at our live event. I mean, the amount of stress that went into the run up to it. Then you get over the hell of 8 o'clock in the evening when everyone's enjoying themselves, and you can start to sort of sit back and enjoy yourself. So I took the decision to go up to Scotland for a few days to see some family, take some time out after I'd put everything into that event. And unfortunately, my van broke down while I was up there, so I couldn't fully enjoy it like completely. And I've been sort of running on a bit of autopilot recently, and I worked all weekend. So Friday, Saturday, I was at events, and then Sunday, literally getting through a backlog of admin that I've been putting off. And my there's a distinct feeling with depression that comes over you, and it's not a wave of like emotion, it's a numbness that you feel throughout your body. It's almost as if someone switched off the emotions,
Mm.
and you just don't feel anything other than either feel sorry for yourself, or do feel sad. And that hit me on Sunday morning, and my partner Emily noticed it, and she came, we said goodbye to each other this morning because she's working away, and she said, "Oh, you're still not right." And that feeling didn't leave me. I was on the way to an event today, and I was driving to the event, and it got more and more intense as I was driving towards this event. So I went through a checklist in my head, and basically what it was is I tried to narrow it down, is that I'd barraged my brain with dopamine and stress at such a high pace over the last few weeks that I've literally I've got nothing left. That's total burnout. So that's my segue into burnout, because
Mm.
it's such an important subject for you. And that it's such a raw experience, and you telling us that that experience you had with a client literally has affected me in the last 48 hours. In terms of burnout and the kind of things that you deal with and the sort of leaders that you work with, what are some of the common factors with burnout, and what are the things that you can do?
So burnout. Okay. So first of all, it is common in high achievers because they are so driven. So if you're an action taker, you're a doer. You'll know if you are. I know what I am. I'm a doer. Just want to get stuff done. Bah, 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 bah. The client I was talking about a moment ago, same again. He's just a real action taker. So that makeup is something you've got to be really careful with, because what you will do is you'll graft, you'll get things done, you'll work through. When you're tired, you'll just keep going, because you're on a mission. Hopefully you're on the right path here, and this is the more positive side of it, where you're working towards a mission that you're completely locked into. It's the right place for you to be. You're super motivated, you're grafting, you're working. It's an early stage of your business, like it is for mine and yours, So actually, you can't just throw 100 grand at salaries at the moment, so therefore you have got to pick up a lot of slack. And I think you've got to be really mindful when you're that sort of person, that you start to read the signs, when you can start to feel fatigue, you start to feel tired, you start to feel agitated, you start to feel a little bit vacant. You're not actually as accurate as you normally are. You start to forget a few things, brain fog, and all of a sudden, if you're not careful and just say, hang on a minute, I need to do something about this, that can be a problem. Now, I've just given you an example there, and my client's a cracking example. Real high achieving, go-getting action taker. So that's one you've got to consider. The other side of the coin, where you've got burnout, is maybe someone that feels obliged to be doing work, isn't setting healthy boundaries, so isn't saying no to enough, and is agreeing and saying yes to too much stuff. And I've done a lot of work on this with clients, where we're having to learn the art of politely saying no. We're having to learn the art of speaking to your line manager to explain that the amount of work that I've got to do is not physically practical for me to do. It's making me feel stressed. I'm working 16-hour days. I'm feeling tired. I'm not going to get it done. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And that's another route to burnout as well. So there's lots of different ways that it can come about. It can come at you from nowhere when you're a high achieving business person that's going and getting stuff, but equally it can get someone that's more stepped, maybe a little bit more of a people pleaser, someone that maybe feels obliged to do things. They might have quite a not a dictator, but they might have quite a forceful line manager or boss, and feel worried about actually telling them that they can't do what they've asked them to do, and they keep taking things on. It gets more and more and more. They never get through the to-do list, they never get work done, and before you know it, we're in a little bit of a horrible cycle. Where the real problems come is when it starts to impact sleep, and we're not sleeping properly, because without a decent, without a good 7 to 9 hours of decent, good quality sleep, then you're definitely going to start going on a slippery slope if you're not careful, So
Definitely. Guys, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Chris, if people want to find you, how can they reach out to you?
So I think you just right. I'm going to quickly share my screen like we did before, mate. So I'll put this so it's on the screen. So if you scan that QR code, that QR code will go straight through to my Calendly, and it will book a discovery call with me, a one-to-one discovery call for an hour, where it'll be a coaching experience, and anyone that joins that, there's two things you'll get. Number one, I will share with you, I've got a really good quality leadership blueprint document that I can share with you, with lots of sort of trends and insights and a bit of value in there in terms of how to approach life to be the most effective leader you can. And also, if you want to work with me, I will actually offer a 10% discount specifically for people that have watched this UK Homes webinar. So that QR code is specifically for that. So you've got it there, whack it on your phone, book a slot in my diary, the system will do the rest for you. And yeah, and I can have a conversation with you from there. Other than that, if you want to see my content, I'm on UK Homes Network app, of course. So get yourself in there, and the health and wellbeing in the main network. And also, I've got a shop window on LinkedIn as well. So if you go on there, Chris Howe, Howe, your results coach, and you'll find me there. And I've got a website, www.yourresultscoach.co.uk. Quite a lot of stuff on there as well. And you can click a link to book a call in there if you want to. But if you use that QR code, that will get you some extra bonuses as well, for courtesy of Chris at UK Homes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. I've really enjoyed tonight's session, and I hope for a lot of people, me especially, it's some of the stories you've shared there and some of the strategies have really resonated with me. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to be talking quite a lot over the next few weeks. But
Good mate. And I'm telling you now, Chris, we've literally scratched the surface. There's so much to go at. There's so much to go at. It's untrue. You know, you'll never cover it off in an hour webinar. So no, good stuff, mate. Good. Enjoyed it.
100%. Well, we'll definitely get you back when your diary allows it, and yeah, we can't wait to sort of delve a little bit deeper into that. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Really do appreciate it. Thank you to Chris for being with us this evening. And our next webinar, we've actually got a construction clinic on Thursday at 12 o'clock lunchtime with Tony from Help Build, and he's basically going to diagnose your refurb and construction build issues. So if you've got any problems ongoing with your projects at the moment that you'd like help with, please do join the live stream in UK Homes Network for that. And we've also got a whole series of webinars in the run up to Christmas every single week on a Monday or a Tuesday. So if you want to keep up to date with that, just head over to the events tab in the app and you'll be able to see all those there. I'll also post updates and emails about those webinars coming up. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys on Thursday. If not on Monday, and thank you very much. Have a great evening.
See you later, guys. Cheers, pal.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, mate.